My class president treated us to a buffet. Feeling poor and insecure, I insisted on going, but I ended up with food poisoning that led to complications, and I spent half a month in the ICU. In this life, the class president, who came from a low-income family, pulled out that golden boss invitation again and invited the whole class to eat at that viral buffet restaurant. This time, clutching my stomach, I sent a message to the group chat saying I was taking a sick day due to acute gastroenteritis, then immediately ordered a bowl of plain white rice porridge. That evening, the sound of ambulance sirens echoed throughout the entire campus. Main text. My phone screen lit up, and messages were flooding the class group chat at lightning speed. Chen Liang sent out an e-invitation with a brief but to the point message. Tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Steak buffet in the old town to celebrate the end of final exams. The whole class is coming, no one is allowed to miss it. It's on me. Below is a series of memes featuring phrases like class president is so cool and thanks. Class president. In the dorm room, Su Xinyue was trying on the dress she planned to wear tomorrow night in front of the mirror when she heard her phone ring. She turned around and asked, "Zhuozhua." Chen Liang said that restaurant is really hard to book, and he went all out for our class this time. You don't have any classes tomorrow, do you? I placed my phone face down on the table and didn't reply right away. That steak buffet in the old town. As I recall, it was a night filled with the pungent smell of disinfectant. Half the class suffered from collective food poisoning after eating raw seafood, experiencing vomiting, diarrhea, and fever. Some even developed severe acute kidney failure due to improper treatment. And in my past life, I was one of those victims who spent half a month in the ICU. That excruciating pain, as if my internal organs were being torn to shreds, still makes my fingers tremble slightly whenever I think about it. I took a deep breath, kept my breathing steady, turned to look at Su Xinyue, and said calmly, "I might not be able to go tomorrow." Su Xinyue paused, set down the lipstick she was holding, and looked at me in surprise. Huh? Why? Chen Liang specifically emphasized that everyone has to be there. And since we're all going tomorrow, he'll definitely ask if you don't show up. I'm not feeling too well, actually. I stood up, walked over to the water cooler, and poured myself a cup of lukewarm water. My stomach's been aching a little these past couple of days. I think I ate too many cold foods a couple of days ago. I plan to go to the hospital tomorrow, so I'll pass on joining the crowd. Yi Qian happened to walk in just then, carrying a takeout bag. When she heard this, she chimed in, "Zhuozhua, is your stomach hurting again? Why don't I call in sick for you tomorrow?" The class president isn't the kind of person who'd be unreasonable. Anyway, no, thanks, I said, setting down my cup and running my fingertips gently along its warm side. I've already drafted the sick leave note. I'll post it in the group chat in a moment. All right, then, get some rest early, and remember to make an appointment tomorrow. Without giving it much thought, Yi Qian turned away to open the takeout box. I went back to my bunk, expertly unlocked my phone, and sent a short message to the group chat frowny face class president. "I'm really sorry, I've suddenly come down with acute gastroenteritis. I'm going to the hospital for a follow-up tomorrow, so I won't be able to make it to the dinner. Hope you all enjoy your meal." Almost the very next second after the message was sent, a private chat pop-up from Chen Liang appeared. "Lin Zhuozhua, everyone else is going. Are you going to let us down now? Are you trying to embarrass me?" Looking at the glaring text on the screen, I calmly replied, "Squad leader Chen, I'm afraid I really can't make it due to health reasons." "I'm sorry." There was a moment of silence on the other end, then 3 characters appeared on the screen. "Whatever you want." The light from the screen shone on my face. I closed the dialog box, set my phone to silent, and got up to go to the bathroom to wash up. Cold water splashed on her face, dispelling the lingering drowsiness. The girl in the mirror looked calm, her eyes clear. Jiang Yimin's message followed shortly after. Although she didn't say it outright, there was a hint of sarcasm in her tone. "Frowny face Zhuozhua, you're not even going to such a rare get-together. It's not because you're stingy about the gift money or think we can't afford to eat out, is it? Or are you secretly planning to go out for a nice meal on your own?" I glanced at it and immediately clicked delete. There's no need to explain, and there's no need to argue. The next evening, before it had completely grown dark, I was the only one left in the dorm room. Su Xinyue and Yi Qian were all dressed up, and before they left, they made sure to remind me to drink some hot water. We're about to leave. Zhuozhua. Are you really not coming? I heard from Chen Liang that he reserved a private room on the top floor. Su Xinyue stood at the door, her purse in hand. Go ahead, I said, leaning against my desk as I flipped through a textbook. I'll just lie down in my dorm room. Just bring me a cup of congee when you get back. All right, let's go. As the door lock clicked shut, the dorm room finally fell into complete silence. I walked over to the window and watched as the group of them filed out of the dormitory building in a long procession, heading toward the school gate. Chen Liang led the way, full of energy, flanked by Jiang Yimin and Gu Yi. The group chatted and laughed, seemingly full of anticipation for tonight's dinner. I watched their figures disappear around the corner, my gaze calm, then turned and walked over to the table, opened the food delivery app, and ordered myself the lightest meal available, steamed greens and plain rice porridge. Outside the window, dusk was falling, and one by one, the streetlights came on, casting long shadows across the campus. Before long, it was completely dark outside. I sat down at my computer to start working on my course registration materials for next semester. While the aroma of congee from a takeout order filled the air, my phone vibrated, and people started posting photos in the class group chat. Chen Liang took a photo of a table full of fresh seafood, including even the raw marinated crab that's the signature dish at that popular online famous restaurant. I lowered my gaze to the food that looked incredibly delicious but was actually teeming with deadly bacteria, closed my laptop, and tossed my phone onto the nightstand as if it were a time bomb about to explode. Time passed slowly, and by 9 p.m. the laughter and cheer in the group chat had reached its peak. Someone started recording a video, and in the shaky footage, everyone was egging Chen Liang on to order a few more bottles of alcohol. I picked up the spoon and quietly took a sip of porridge. Outside the window, the rapid, piercing wail of an ambulance siren shattered the stillness of the night. I put down my spoon and didn't touch the bowl of porridge I hadn't finished. Silhouettes began streaming out one after another from the entrance of the dormitory building. The usually quiet dormitory area was thrown into chaos by the sudden turn of events. Some people frantically made phone calls, while others rushed downstairs to see what was happening. My phone wouldn't stop vibrating, and messages from the class group chat were popping up like crazy. Oh my gosh! Someone posted a photo in the group chat. It looks like something happened at the dinner party. My roommate just called me and said she saw an ambulance heading to that all-you-can-eat steak buffet. There were a lot of people lying on the floor, vomiting uncontrollably. Where's the squad leader? Can anyone get in touch with Chen Liang? I opened the group chat and scrolled down to the last photo posted. It was taken by Jiang Yimin half an hour ago. In it, everyone was in a state of disarray, and the table was piled high with raw marinated crab and sashimi. I turned off the screen, calmly got up, poured out the leftover porridge, and threw the disposable tableware into the trash can. The dorm room door burst open, and Su Xinyue rushed in, her face pale, clutching her cell phone, her fingertips still trembling slightly. Zhuozhua, something's happened. Something's happened to everyone. She staggered over to a chair and sat down, her breathing still ragged. Chen Liang had such severe diarrhea that he became dehydrated. He's been carried straight into an ambulance. And Jiang Yimin has fainted too, her face is terrifyingly pale. I poured her a glass of warm water and handed it to her. My hand steady. Have a sip of water and take your time. That's terrifying. Something was wrong with the food at that place. We could tell the taste was off when we were eating it. But Chen Liang said it was top quality stuff. Su Xinyue took the glass of water and drank deeply. Good thing you didn't go. If you'd been there too, our whole dorm would have been wiped out today. I didn't say anything. I just silently pulled out a few tissues and handed them to him. The school has already put a news blackout in place, saying they're afraid it might cause panic. Yi Qian then pushed open the door and walked in. She looked slightly better than Su Xinyue, but her brows were furrowed and her expression was grave. My advisor just called to ask why I didn't show up. I told her I had something come up at the last minute. Zhuozhuo, how did you know there was something wrong with that restaurant? Your sick leave yesterday for acute gastroenteritis was way too convenient. For a split second, the air in the dorm room seemed to freeze. I turned around, neatly arranged the books on my desk, and said in a matter-of-fact tone, I was just lucky. I really wasn't feeling well yesterday, so I didn't go join the crowd. Luck? Yi Qian gave me a skeptical look, then turned to Su Xinyue. Don't you think this is a little too coincidental? The class president forced the whole class to attend. Zhuozhuo took a sick day without saying a word, and now the entire class is out of commission, and she's the only one who's fine. I listened to the discussion behind me without offering any explanation. With some things, the more you say, the more mistakes you make. As long as you act naturally enough, any suspicion will, over time, fade into an acceptance of coincidence. My phone vibrated again. The counselor posted an urgent notice in the group chat. Frowny face. All students on campus must remain in their dorm rooms. Do not go to the school clinic or the dinner venue on your own. The school has already sent people to handle the situation. Deal with the fallout? Su Xinyue let out a cold laugh, her voice tinged with a hint of lingering fear. Chen Liang's really screwed this time. He said he chose a restaurant that hadn't gotten its health permit yet to save money, and now dozens of students from our class are in the hospital. The school is definitely going to hold him accountable. I leaned against the table, listening to their conversation, my gaze fixed on the window. It was late at night, and the campus clinic was brightly lit, with ambulances constantly coming and going. A clamorous sound of footsteps came from outside the door. It sounded like a dorm check. Someone was shouting loudly in the hallway. Is everyone in this dorm here? The counselor is taking roll call to keep track of who didn't go to the dinner. There was a knock on the dorm room door. Yi Qian got up to answer it. A guy wearing glasses poked his head in, holding a registration form, and glanced at the three of us in the room. Is Lin Zhuozhuo here? Here, I said. Didn't you go to the dinner last night? I'm sick, so I took a sick day. He glanced at my leave record, checked the box on the form, and his tone softened a bit. All right, you're pretty lucky to have avoided this incident. However, the school may want to talk to you later to find out what happened before and after the dinner, so you should start preparing for that. After the guy left, the dorm fell back into dead silence. Su Xinyue looked at me, as if she wanted to say something but held back. Zhuozhuo, if they ask, what are you going to tell them? If you tell the truth, Chen Liang will definitely hate you to death. After all, he's the one who led everyone there. I pulled open the drawer, took out a notebook for my major, and turned to a new page. Just tell the truth, I replied calmly. After all, taking time off for health reasons isn't anything to be ashamed of. Just then, Chen Liang's number suddenly flashed up on my phone screen. When I saw that name, my eyes lingered on it for a second, and then my finger tapped the answer button. Chen Liang's weak voice came through the phone, laced with a furious shout. Lin Zhuozhuo, stop playing dumb. Did you know from the very beginning that there was something fishy about that store? The timing of your sick leave is way too convenient out of the whole class. Why were you the only one who suddenly came down with gastroenteritis? I moved my phone slightly away from my ear and waited for him to finish yelling before speaking calmly. Chen Liang, I asked Counselor Xiang for permission to be absent, and I followed the proper procedures. As for the dinner venue, you were the one who chose it. If you suspect me, just check the surveillance footage or call in an investigation team. Don't call me about this. After saying that, I hung up the phone right away. The dorm room fell silent. Su Xinyue and Yi Qian had clearly both heard Chen Liang's hostile remark just now, and their eyes were both fixed on my phone. Zhuozhuo, is Chen Liang trying to pin this on you? Su Xinyue furrowed her brow, her voice tinged with anxiety. He chose the restaurant himself. And now that something's gone wrong, he can't explain it to the school, so he's trying to find a scapegoat? He can't reach it. I set my phone back on the table and tapped the edge of the screen lightly 3 times with my fingertip. But now some people in the group chat have already started making snide remarks. Yi Qian opened her phone, looking a bit upset. Jiang Yimin posted a status in the group chat. Although she didn't name anyone, the implication was clear: someone had foreseen the future and was deliberately feigning illness to stay out of the spotlight. I glanced up at Yi Qian's phone screen. Jiang Yimin did indeed post the following on her moments in the group chat: frowny face, sincerity doesn't breed sincerity. Some people act all high and mighty in everyday life, but when it really counts, they can't even shoulder this much responsibility, and they can even predict the future. What a clever trick. There were quite a few people commenting in support of this post on Moments, mostly those who were close to Chen Liang. Their comments were full of skepticism regarding privilege and manipulation. I stared at the screen, my expression completely unreadable, then turned away and went back to organizing the documents. Are you just going to put up with this? Su Xinyue leaned in. What if word of this gets out and the counselor believes it? The counselor isn't stupid, I said calmly as I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the printed preliminary diagnosis recommendation I'd obtained from the school clinic the day before. Although I hadn't actually attended the dinner that night, I'd prepared this just in case. Here's my medical report. I did see a doctor yesterday. As for the rest, rumors stop at the wise. Yi Qian looked at the diagnosis report and paused for a moment. Did you really go to the hospital yesterday? Go buy some medicine. I didn't say much more. I got up and went out to the balcony to fold the clothes that were hanging out to dry. There was a commotion outside the hallway. It sounded like the school's security guards were going from door to door asking questions. There was another knock on the door. This time it was the counselor. She pushed open the door and walked in, looking somewhat exhausted. She was clearly at her wits' end over the sudden, large-scale case of food poisoning. How's Chen Liang doing? She glanced around the dorm room, her gaze finally settling on me. Lin Zhuozhua, Chen Liang told me that you insisted on taking the day off yesterday because you found out in advance that the restaurant didn't meet hygiene standards. The temperature in the dorm room seemed to have dropped to freezing. I looked at the counselor without flinching. Speaking frankly, counselor, that's just Chen Liang's speculation. I took a sick day because of stomach discomfort. As for the hygiene conditions at that restaurant, I'd never even heard of it before that. If anyone doesn't believe me, they can check my food delivery order history. Yesterday I ordered a light meal from my dorm room. The counselor looked at me intently for a moment, then finally nodded. The school is investigating that restaurant. At this point, the evidence suggests that the food itself was contaminated at the source, and it has nothing to do with your personal actions. For now, try not to get into arguments with others in the class chat group. Focus on your studies instead. After the counselor left, Su Xinyue let out a long sigh. That was a close call. I thought she really suspected you. There's nothing to be afraid of, I said, sitting in my chair and gazing out the window at the pitch-black night. Chen Liang's anger right now stems not only from the physical torment but also from the fact that he knows he'll face immense public pressure. He needs a scapegoat to share the blame, and I just happen to be the most obvious target. But I know full well that when the school's investigation report is finally released, all the predictions will turn into a mockery of his judgment in choosing a restaurant. My phone vibrated again. This time it was an unknown number. When I answered, a calm male voice said, Lin Zhuozhua, I'm the teacher from the school's logistics office in charge of handling this incident. I need to speak with you in detail about why you didn't attend the dinner yesterday. I held the phone, listening as the other person explained the reason for the call. My fingers unconsciously traced the textbook on the desk, and I replied softly, Okay, I'll head to the office right away. After hanging up the phone, I put on a jacket and glanced back at my roommate before leaving. Yi Qian looked at me with some concern. Zhuozhua, are you really okay? It's okay. I picked up my backpack and pushed open the dorm room door. The air in the hallway carried that distinctive late-night dampness. As I walked down the stairs, I saw a few classmates who also hadn't gone to the dinner gathering huddled together, whispering. When they saw me coming down, they instinctively stopped talking, their expressions a mix of emotions. At this moment of suspicion, any explanation seemed superfluous. I walked straight through the crowd, keeping my eyes fixed ahead, toward the administration building. Just as I reached the entrance to the administration building, Chen Liang was standing in the lobby, leaning on a cane. His face was waxy and pale, and his gaze was filled with venom as he looked at me. When he saw me approaching, he suddenly strode forward, trying to block my path. His voice hoarse and chilling. Lin Zhuozhua, did you report me to the school? Which is why this investigation happened so quickly. What exactly are you trying to do? Lin Zhuozhua, I'm asking you a question. Did you collude with the school authorities all along? I dodged the spit he was spewing in his agitation, took half a step back, and spoke in a tone so steady it bordered on cold. Qin Liang, what you should be doing right now is getting in for, not standing here speculating about an investigation that has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with me? Qin Liang let out a strange, cold laugh. He looked around and said in a low voice, don't think I don't know, you've always had it in for me. Now that I'm in trouble, aren't you feeling pretty smug? I wouldn't exactly call it a victory, I said, glancing down at my watch. There were still 5 minutes until our appointment. But if you keep blocking my way, I wouldn't mind calling security to help you recharge. Teachers passing by cast scrutinizing glances his way, and Chen Liang's expression froze. His previously menacing demeanor suddenly seemed somewhat comical. He clenched his teeth and jabbed the ground hard with the cane in his hand. Just you wait, this isn't over yet. He spat out the threat and staggered toward the door, leaning on the wall for support. I watched his back disappear around the corner, then turned and went upstairs to knock on the office door. The teacher's office in the logistics department was piled high with thick stacks of documents, and the air carried the scent of musty paper. The teacher motioned for me to sit down and immediately laid out a questionnaire. Lin Zhuozhua, this mass incident is very serious, and the school is currently verifying everyone's movements. You took a leave of absence last night. Do you have conclusive medical documentation to support it? I pulled up the records on my phone and, while I was at it, showed him the electronic receipt for the medicine I bought last night. Doctor, here are my medical records and the receipt for the medicine I bought. You can verify them. He looked down at his phone screen, and his furrowed brow slowly smoothed out. Very good. So, do you know anything about how the venue for last night's dinner was chosen? No. I shook my head, looking him straight in the eye. I'm just an ordinary student in squad leader Chen's class. I'm not familiar with his reasoning behind the location choice. I'm only responsible for following the class schedule. I requested a last-minute leave of absence because I suddenly came down with an upset stomach last night. I heard you aren't particularly close to Qin Liang, since he insisted that the whole class attend this time. Have you heard anything out of the ordinary? He came across as pretty bossy in the group chat at the time, saying that he was treating everyone to a meal to celebrate the end of exams and insisting that everyone attend. But I personally think this was just a leadership tactic he used as class president. My answer was airtight. I neither defended myself nor deliberately smeared Qin Liang, I simply stated the facts. The teacher nodded and put the form away. I understand. Go back now, and don't get involved in any class discussions. The school will come up with an appropriate solution to this matter. As I walked out of the administration building, a hint of dawn was already breaking on the horizon. The cold air filled her lungs, bringing a refreshing chill. Her phone vibrated. Su Xinyue had sent a message. Frowny-faced Zhuozhua. Qin Liang is going crazy downstairs in the dorm building, saying he wants to confront you. Everyone's gathered to watch the spectacle. Don't come back yet. I stood on the steps, watching the morning light slowly spread across the landscape. A confrontation? Instead of replying to the message, I took the path behind the administration building and headed straight for the student service center. Qin Liang thought he could put pressure on me by berating and grilling me, but in my eyes, all his struggles were merely hastening his own descent into the quagmire. Just as I was about to turn into the convenience store to buy a bottle of water, a shadow blocked my path. Jiang Yimin had appeared at some point. She was wearing a tracksuit today. Although her face was still a little pale, her eyes betrayed an unmistakable sense of anxiety. Lin Zhuozhua, she said bluntly, her tone carrying a hint of command. What did you say to the counselor? Why did Qin Liang say that when the investigation team spoke with him, your name came up so often? I stopped in my tracks and looked at Jiang Yimin. She was clearly acting on Qin Liang's instructions, or perhaps out of her own fear, and was trying to pry information out of me about the progress of the school's investigation. You're reading too much into it, I said calmly. The teacher was just asking questions as part of the procedure. He didn't mention anyone in particular. No way. Jiang Yimin took a step closer, her gaze scrutinizing him. You must have some kind of leverage over him otherwise. How could you have just happened to get sick that very day? Don't act so innocent. We all know full well that you're just trying to ruin Chen Liang's reputation. Since you think I'm capable of that, you should definitely remind Chen Liang to think things through more carefully before making decisions in the future. I walked past her without pausing for a moment. From behind her, Jiang Yimin shouted in a fit of rage. Stop right there. Do you think you can just wash your hands of this? I ignored it and walked straight toward the figure approaching me. It was the department's academic advisor. She seemed to be looking for me. Behind her was a middle-aged man who looked very stern. He was carrying a thick blue folder containing the preliminary investigation results regarding that cafeteria, clearly stamped in red with the word serious hygiene violations. Lin Zhuozhua, it's good to see you here. The counselor stopped and pointed to the man behind her. This is Director Wang from the District Market Regulation Bureau. Regarding what happened at that buffet restaurant last night, there are some routine details that need to be verified with the students in the class. Since you weren't there, Director Wang would like to ask you a few questions from a third-party perspective. I nodded and looked calmly at Director Wang. Hello. Director Wang opened the blue folder in his hand. His brow furrowed deeply. Lin, before your class president, Chen Liang, booked this restaurant. Did he ever mention in the class chat group or in private that the place was recommended by an acquaintance? Or that he'd secured a discounted rate through some special channel? He just posted an electronic invitation in the group chat, saying he was treating the whole class to a steak buffet. I replied honestly, in a calm, measured tone. As for how to make reservations or the price, he didn't mention any of that publicly. Director Wang snorted coldly, closed the folder, and said with undisguised disgust, no wonder he didn't dare bring it up. That restaurant doesn't even have a business license, even the kitchen's health permit is forged. We went out last night to shut it down. Do you have any idea what the kitchen looked like? Jiang Yimin, who was standing not far away and had been eavesdropping with her ears pricked, involuntarily took half a step forward. The freezer is full of rotten, stinking seafood, marinated with strong chemical flavorings and food coloring to mask the smell of decay. Director Wang's voice wasn't loud, but it carried clearly along the empty tree-lined avenue. Those so-called prime-cut steaks are all low-quality products made from ground meat and some kind of unknown adhesive, with E. coli levels hundreds of times over the limit. If you eat that stuff, it's a miracle no one has died yet. Jiang Yimin's face instantly drained of all color. She abruptly covered her mouth, turned, and rushed toward the flower bed by the roadside, where she began to retch violently. I watched her disheveled figure walk away, my eyes showing no emotion. In my past life, food contaminated with deadly bacteria also found its way into my stomach. That feeling of being on the brink of death from organ failure was a million times more agonizing than the dry heaving I'm experiencing now. Thank you for your cooperation, Lin. Director Wang nodded at me. If we need anything else in the future, we'll be in touch. That's only fair. Watching the counselor and Director Wang walk away, I ignored Jiang Yimin, who was still vomiting violently by the flower bed, turned around, and walked straight back to the dorm. As she pushed open the dorm room door, she saw Su Xinyue and Yi Qian sitting around the desk. Neither of them looked very happy. Zhuozhua, you're back. Su Xinyue looked up at me, turned her phone screen toward me, and lowered her voice. The school issued an official statement that store has been shut down, and the owner was taken into police custody overnight. But the class chat group has completely blown up. I pulled out a chair and sat down, then poured myself a glass of lukewarm water. Because of the medical bills? Yi Qian slammed his fist on the table and said angrily, that's exactly right. Gastric lavage. For fluids, and several of the more seriously injured were sent straight to the ICU. That's no small sum. Although the restaurant owner has been arrested, he has no money to pay for the damages. Now, many students' parents have rushed to the school overnight, demanding an explanation from Chen Liang. What did Chen Liang say? I took a sip of water. What else could he say? He's lying in a hospital bed right now, playing dead. Su Xinyue snorted derisively, her finger swiping rapidly across the screen. But he just posted a long, tearful apology in the group chat, claiming he's a victim too. I took out my phone and opened the class group chat, which had switched to Do Not Disturb mode. Chen Liang's long post was prominently displayed in the most visible spot. The gist of it was that he'd meant well but ended up doing more harm than good, having been deceived by an unscrupulous merchant. But at the very end of his lengthy rant, he added a single sentence in an extremely subtle way. I decided to surprise everyone after hearing a classmate highly recommend this place for its great value. I admit I wasn't thorough enough in vetting it, but to the person who recommended this terrible restaurant to me behind my back, only to deliberately skip the dinner on the day of the event by claiming to be sick, can you really live with yourself? As soon as that news broke, the mood in the group chat changed instantly. The barrage of criticism that had originally been directed unanimously at Chen Liang suddenly shifted its focus because of these few suggestive remarks. Who are they talking about? There are only a few people who were absent because they took a day off. Do I even need to guess? Only one person suddenly came down with gastroenteritis on the day of the dinner. The timing is just too perfect. Don't you think? If she really did recommend it, that's practically murder. It's terrifying when you think about it. As she watched the speculations keep popping up, Su Xinyue trembled with rage. Has Chen Liang lost his mind? He got himself into this mess, and now he's trying to pin the blame on you? Zhuozhua. With him stirring things up like this in the group chat, everyone's just waiting to laugh at you. It's not just about making fun of him, Yi Qian said, starting to feel nervous. Those parents are already worried about finding someone to pay them compensation. If Chen Liang keeps passing the buck like this, what if someone actually believes him and comes after you? I set down my water glass and tapped my fingertips lightly on the table. Chen Liang's calculations were crystal clear. He couldn't afford to cover the medical expenses or deal with the anger of dozens of people, so he had to fabricate a heinous culprit to divert all the resentment elsewhere. And I, the only one who had come out of it unscathed, and who had had some minor run-ins with him in the past, became the perfect scapegoat. Don't worry about him, I said, turning off my phone. The more he runs around like a headless chicken, the more he'll give himself away. This afternoon, I took my book to the library. The atmosphere on campus felt a bit tense, and people passing by would occasionally give me strange looks. Clearly, Chen Liang's insinuations in the group chat had already spread through various private messages and smaller chat groups. As soon as I walked into the reading room on the second floor of the library, a figure blocked my path. It's Gu Yi. His face was still a little pale, and he was holding a thermos. It looked like he had just returned from the hospital after receiving N4. Though he usually had a carefree, laid-back demeanor, there was now a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Lin Zhuozhua. Gu Yi pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a sharp edge. Want to talk? I set the book down on the table and looked up at him. What do you want to talk about? Tell me how you knew what was going to happen, Gu Yi said, staring me straight in the eye. Chen Liang was going crazy in the group chat, and I didn't believe everything he said. But he was right about one thing: the timing of your leave was way too convenient. Out of the 30-odd students in our class, you're the only one who came out unscathed. Do you really dare say you knew absolutely nothing about the problems at that store? I looked at Gu Yi, my tone so calm it didn't betray the slightest hint of emotion. It's just survivor bias. Since I happened not to go there, you're blowing all these coincidences way out of proportion. Gu Yi, if I really knew there was something wrong with that store, do you think I would have just taken a day off instead of calling the police to have the place shut down? Gu Yi seemed slightly taken aback, as if he hadn't expected me to respond with a counter-question like that. Even if, just for the sake of argument, I really did know. I leaned forward slightly and looked him straight in the eye. As the organizer, Chen Liang failed to verify the restaurant's credentials and took the whole class to eat at an unlicensed roadside stall. Was that because I held a knife to his throat and forced him to sign the order? Gu Yi fell silent. He wasn't a fool to begin with. He'd simply been swept up in the group's emotions for a moment. Now that I'd cut to the heart of the matter with just a few words, the suspicion in his eyes gradually faded, replaced by a complex smile. You really are terrifyingly cold-hearted, Gu Yi said. shaking his head as he unscrewed the lid of his thermos and took a sip of water. But you're right, Chen Liang is like a mad dog right now, biting anyone he can get his hands on. You should be careful yourself. I heard that a few hot-tempered parents are already planning to cause a scene at the counselor's office, demanding to see the mastermind behind the restaurant recommendation. Thanks for the reminder. I opened my book and stopped looking at him. Gu Yi shrugged, stood up, and left. It was very quiet in the library, with only the occasional rustling sound of pages being turned. I didn't just brush off Gu Ye's warning. Since Chen Liang dared to openly spread rumors in the group chat, it must mean he had prepared the so-called evidence. Just then, the cell phone in his pocket vibrated slightly. I looked down and saw that the school's anonymous forum app had pushed a trending post across the entire site. In-depth investigation. What secret is the girl who faked illness to escape the food poisoning incident hiding? The post's popularity is skyrocketing at an abnormally alarming rate. Not only does it include screenshots of the chat log from the day I took time off, but there's even an extremely blurry photo of a figure from behind. In the photo, a girl with a build very similar to mine is standing at the entrance of that toxic restaurant, talking to the owner. Looking at that photo, which was clearly taken from a fake angle, a faint, cold smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. The date on that photo is marked as the afternoon of the dinner party. I stared at the blurry silhouette on the screen, then glanced at the distinctive red-painted wooden door of the restaurant in the background of the photo. I closed my phone and didn't rush to reply to the comments under the post. Instead, I opened a map app to check the area around that buffet restaurant. It was in the old part of town, with many blind spots in the surveillance coverage, which is why Chen Liang dared to forge something like this. But there's a fatal flaw in this photo. That girl was wearing a thin silver bracelet on her right wrist. I lowered my gaze to my bare right wrist. I never wear jewelry, a fact that both Su Xinyue and Yi Qian in our dorm knew well. The library was brightly lit. I got up and walked over to the service desk, politely asking, "Excuse me, I'd like to check my card swipe records and the security camera footage from when I entered and left the library last night. I need to verify something." The librarian glanced at me. She seemed to have heard about the commotion over the past couple of days, and sighed. "You can look it up here once you enter your account." The monitoring room is on the B1 level. Half an hour later, I was holding a printed copy of the location history and a clear copy of the surveillance footage. My phone vibrated. In the class group chat, Chen Liang was still tagging me like crazy. "Lin Zhuozhua, there's no point in hiding. The photos have already been leaked. What else do you have to say? The whole class is watching. Everyone's in the counselor's office right now, waiting for you to explain yourself." I looked at the screen and typed a reply, frowny face, "Where's the evidence?" Trying to convict someone based on nothing more than a blurry photo of their back. Chen Liang, your skills at fabricating evidence are far worse than your taste in choosing restaurants. The group chat went silent in an instant. Chen Liang probably didn't expect me to confront him head-on. It took him quite a while to reply, frowny face, "You're still trying to wriggle out of it. That's definitely you in the photo. The build and clothes are exactly the same." I ignored him and instead went straight to the post on that anonymous forum I'd seen earlier. I uploaded the full surveillance video, showing me borrowing books at the library, reading them, and staying there until closing time, to the comments section of the post, along with a single line of text. "Last night from 7 to 10 o'clock, I was at the school library. Here's the proof." As for that photo of my back, the composition and angle are extremely contrived. I suggest the person who posted it verify the style of the bracelet the person in the photo is wearing. As soon as this reply was posted, the sentiment in the comments section instantly shifted. "Wow, has this girl been at the library all night? That's real surveillance footage. It can't be faked, right? The key is the bracelet." I zoomed in on the original photo, and that person is definitely wearing a silver chain. Lin Zhuozhua would never wear something like that. Is Chen Liang trying to incite online harassment? That's disgusting. I put my phone away and didn't read the rest of the insults. In this internet age, the tide can turn in a matter of seconds. As I walked out of the library, the setting sun was casting its rays onto the track on the playground, stretching the shadows out long. Before I even reached the dorm building, I saw a crowd gathered outside the counselor's office. Chen Liang was sitting in a chair with his leg wrapped in thick bandages, tearfully explaining something to several parents. It was her who recommended it. She clearly said that day that the food at that place was good. Chen Liang's voice sounded high-pitched with excitement. I walked over, keeping a steady pace. The crowd automatically parted to make a path, and everyone's eyes turned to me. The counselor saw me, furrowed his brow, and walked over. Lin Zhuozhua, Chen Liang says these matters have something to do with you. You. I cut her off immediately and handed her the folder I was holding. Teacher, this is my location history from last night. I've already posted it online. Also, regarding Chen Liang's accusation that I recommended that restaurant, I request access to all the chat logs from our class group chat. If anyone can find even a single instance where I recommended that restaurant, or any evidence that I was involved in placing an order there, I'm willing to take full responsibility. I turned around and looked straight into Chen Liang's eyes, which were bloodshot with anger. Chen Liang, you said I recommended him. So where are the chat logs? Where are the transfer records? Or did you forget to fabricate the entire chain of evidence when you were faking that photo? Chen Liang jumped to his feet, but the pain from his wound made him gasp. You. Don't make false accusations. You're the one who deleted the records. If I can delete it, why can't you produce it? I took a step forward, exuding an air of intimidation. Or is this all just a charade you staged to avoid paying compensation? Some of the parents standing nearby began to get restless. Why is the squad leader talking so incoherently? They've produced the surveillance footage, and you can't even show a screenshot? Chen Liang's face alternated between pale and ashen, and cold sweat was pouring down his forehead. Just then, a commotion broke out nearby. A plainclothes police officer, accompanied by 2 auxiliary police officers, entered the administration building, and their eyes quickly locked onto Chen Liang. The police officer, holding a document and looking serious, asked, "Are you Chen Liang? Regarding the investigation into the incident at that restaurant last night, we need your help to verify some information. Someone reported that you accepted a kickback from the restaurant owner when placing an order, and that you forced the entire class to participate in an activity despite knowing the restaurant was unlicensed." Chen Liang's face went completely pale, and the cane in his hand clattered to the tiled floor. I stood on the edge of the crowd, quietly watching the scene unfold. As the crowd gradually dispersed, most of the parents, who had arrived earlier in a furious mood demanding answers, were now silent. Some were quietly asking the police officers about follow-up compensation, while others were engaged in weary negotiations with school officials. I stood at the bottom of the steps, looking at the scattered fallen leaves on the ground. Su Xinyue and Yi Qian pushed their way through the crowd. Their faces were still a little pale, but when they saw me, a hint of relief flashed in their eyes. Chen Liang is completely finished this time, Su Xinyue said with a deep sigh as she watched the police car drive off. The school just issued its final announcement. He's been expelled for embezzlement and illegal business operations. Plus, the restaurant owner revealed that he was taking kickbacks on the side, a huge amount. He's in for a world of trouble. Where's Jiang Yimin? I asked casually. She was called in for a talk, Yi Qian added. I heard that even though she didn't place the order, she helped Chen Liang spread those false rumors slandering you on the forum. Now she's been given a disciplinary warning and has to write a public apology letter to the entire school. I nodded slightly and didn't say anything else. All of this is the result of Chen Liang and Jiang Yimin bringing it upon themselves. It has nothing to do with me. Let's go back to the dorm, I said, turning around and heading toward the dorm building. Although the school had weathered this turmoil, life must go on. The afternoon sun streamed through the gaps in the camphor trees onto the campus, and with a faint haze of dust floating in the air, everything seemed to have returned to normal. Over the next few days, talk of the food poisoning incident on campus gradually died down. To calm tensions, the school increased the frequency of health inspections in the cafeteria and strictly prohibited any off-campus gatherings that violated the rules. I still lead a routine life. I get up early to go to the library, attend classes on time, and study in my dorm room in the evenings. Occasionally, when I ran into classmates in the hallways of the school building, the look in their eyes had shifted from initial suspicion to something more complex. But no one dared to bring up what happened that day anymore, nor did anyone dare to pick on me so easily. That subtle sense of awe is exactly the kind of peace I need. On Friday afternoon, I sat by the window in the library, organizing my course reading list for the next semester. Su Xinyue suddenly sent me a WeChat message frowny-faced Wujua. There's a class meeting tonight. The advisor is requiring everyone to attend, apparently. They're going to re-elect the class officers and explain the compensation plan. I looked at my phone screen and tapped the tabletop with my finger. After Chen Liang was ousted, the class committee structure fell into complete disarray, which was, indeed, an inevitable outcome. At 7 p.m. I walked into the classroom right on time. An indescribable awkwardness hung in the classroom. Everyone was sitting in small groups, and the seats were spaced much further apart than usual. The counselor stood at the front of the classroom, looking noticeably better than she had a few days earlier. Her gaze swept across the room, lingering for a second on my seat before she announced the start of the meeting. The school has already issued its final decision regarding this incident. Chen Liang has been disciplined for serious personal violations of the law, and we hope everyone will take this as a lesson. Today, we will elect a new interim class president to handle the medical reimbursement process for the students moving forward. As soon as he finished speaking, a brief silence fell over the classroom. No one wants to take on the thankless job of class president at such a sensitive time, after all. It involves compensation and negotiations with various parties, and it's a thankless task. Lin Zhuozhua, the advisor said suddenly, in an inquiring tone, you've been working on your course registration materials lately and are quite familiar with the class situation. Could you help out for a bit with compiling the reimbursement reports? All eyes in the room turned to him at once. I looked up and met the advisor's gaze, then shook my head impassively. Advisor, I have a heavy course load this semester, so I'm afraid I won't have the time to handle such complicated administrative work. I suggest selecting a classmate who's more familiar with financial reimbursement procedures. The counselor paused for a moment, seemingly taken aback by my blunt refusal. That's okay. I'll think it over some more. She didn't press the issue and turned to ask the others for their opinions. I looked away, lowered my head, and continued jotting down the key points of the lecture in my notebook. Actually, whether I become class president or not, it doesn't matter to me. In my past life, I struggled to survive under the titles of outstanding graduate and model class president, only to be met with a devastating betrayal in the end. In this life, I just want to distance myself from the crowd and from all that meaningless power and fame. By the time the meeting ended, it was almost 9 o'clock. A light rain began to fall, and the streetlights on campus were reflected in the puddles, casting concentric circles of orange-yellow light. I walked out of the school building, holding my umbrella. Guyi was standing under the eaves of a nearby building, smoking. When he saw me, he stubbed out his cigarette and walked over. Pretty smart of him not to take on that hot potato. He leaned against the streetlight pole, gazing at the distant playground. I wonder what kind of look Chen Liang would have on his face if he knew that the class president position he'd worked so hard to earn over 4 years is now a role no one dares to take on. It's none of my business, I said flatly. Yeah, it's none of your business, Guyi said with a smile, a hint of wistfulness in his voice. You've always been so clear-sighted. Lin Zhuozhua, to be honest, everyone used to think you were just a quiet, underprivileged student, but I never expected this incident to turn you into the most enigmatic person in our class. I stopped in my tracks and turned my head to look at him. Guyi, if someone just wants to live their own life, does that make them seem out of place? As long as you're doing well, what does it matter if you don't fit in? Guyi shrugged. Anyway, Chen Liang and his crew probably won't dare to come bother you again. The rain grew heavier and heavier, making a dull thudding sound as it pounded against the umbrella. I didn't say anything else. I turned around and walked step by step along that familiar tree-lined path toward the dormitory building. The story has come to an end. Thank you all for sticking with me. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you.